All right, everybody, I think we are good to go. Can those of you in the back hear me fairly well? Okay, thanks, Dad. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for coming and joining us today at our 2023 Crawford Symposium. My name is Shelby Bazan. I am an environmental educator here with BEMP, and my pronouns are she and her. First, before we get started, I would just like to say a few words about why we are here at this event and what this whole event is, because it is called the Crawford Symposium, so we need to know why. So BEMP's Crawford Symposium is held in honor of co-founder Clifford Crawford. Cliff was passionate about environmental education and riparian ecosystems, especially the Rio Grande Bosque. After retiring from UNM in 1994, Cliff continued his passion and research for ecological research by helping establish BEMP. He helped establish BEMP in 1996, and we thank you all for coming and honoring Cliff every year with us during this annual event. I'm going to hand it over real quick to our Spanish translator, Rafael, and he's going to say a few things as well.
Gracias, Shelby. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. Estamos muy contentos y agradecidos de su participación. Y como acaba de mencionar Shelby, hoy estamos reunidos un año más para celebrar este simposio en honor al cofundador Cliff Crawford. Y como ella bien menciona, la pasión de este ser humano que se retiró en el año de 1996 de UNM, esa pasión la continuó con sus investigaciones ecológicas, especialmente de nuestro río ribereño, y un culmen, un buen inicio de ello fue el cofundar BEMP, y es por ello que les agradecemos estar presentes aquí. Y él básicamente, Cliff ha sido una motivación para seguir año con año estas investigaciones que los estudiantes, y gracias a todos los que están aquí presentes, es posible.
Thank you, Rafael. All right, so we are going to get started with some of our youth presentations, which... Oh, yes, we have Tina Esbach here, who also is going to say a welcome from UNM, so come on up. Thank you for reminding me. All right, there you go. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here and to welcome you to the symposium. It's an honor to be here and learn about the important work that the BEMP team and the students and the community has done this past year. I wanted to just talk about how I'm connected to BEMP because it's at various levels, actually. So first, as chair of biology, I'm connected to BEMP. We are really proud to be part of the BEMP program and to have BEMP at UNM. Everything from the founding of BEMP and its connection to UNM through Dr. Cliff Crawford, but especially the hands-on opportunities that BEMP gives our undergraduate students in the field every semester, and it's for a lot of our students, it's their first real hands-on research experience. But also I wanted to talk about my connection to BEMP as a parent. We moved to New Mexico in 2002, had our children here, and they went through Bandelier Elementary School, and second grade was the first time we heard about BEMP, and we were really excited to become involved and go on the field trips. And it was this experience that drew us to the Bosque School, and both of our kids went through middle school at Bosque. And I just remember a lot of field trips and the experiences that my kids got in this program, learning how to do science, learning names for the plants and animals that they would see when they would walk out the door. And it was a really important experience for them. Finally, I want to just talk about the work that BEMP does, bringing the people of our state into our iconic bosque and how important that is. I feel like that's a really important piece of the puzzle that we have in the state, where we are bringing students from all around the area, from all around the state, to learn about the bosque, learning to love it, learning to understand how it functions. And I think it's a really important way to pass our love for this land on to future generations. And I just want to thank the BEMP team for continuing that important work. So, big hand for them.
All right. I don't think I'm missing anyone else anymore. Okay, so what we are going to do now is we are going to look at some of our youth presentations, some of our K through high school presentations. They have worked with us all semester and all year to create some of these videos, which is really awesome. And we thank those of you who have made these videos, who are here today. We thank you all for making them and contributing and learning with us.
BEMP Science and Education take place on current and ancestral lands of the Pueblo, Diné, Navajo, Apache, and other displaced indigenous peoples. BEMP acknowledges that this land was forcibly stolen by European colonizers, and that the detrimental effects of their presence through violence, displacement, and disease are still impactful today. We offer this acknowledgement as a first step in honoring the indigenous peoples and their ancestors, and as a call towards further learning and actions as guests in this place.
La ciencia y la educación de BEMP se llevan a cabo en tierras actuales y ancestrales de Pueblo, Diné, Navajo, Apache y otros pueblos indígenas desplazados. BEMP reconoce que esta tierra fue robada a la fuerza por los colonizadores europeos y que los efectos perjudiciales de su presencia a través de la violencia, el desplazamiento y las enfermedades todavía tienen un gran impacto a día de hoy. Ofrecemos este reconocimiento como un primer paso para honrar a la gente indígena y sus antepasados, pero también como llamada para un aprendizaje y unas acciones más profundos como huéspedes en este lugar.
Hello all, and welcome to BEMP's 2023 Crawford Symposium. My name is Zoe Wadkins-Daniels. I'm the Education Manager at BEMP, and this is my boss, Abel. I would like to begin with a quote by one of my favorite authors, Robin Wall Kimmerer, author, mother, scientist, decorated professor, and enrolled member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation. Quote, "Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift." Over the last several years, the COVID-19 pandemic has had an unprecedented effect on the educational and broader sphere. Despite the many variations of learning that schools, teachers, and community partners readjusted to, BEMP Education did its best to meet our community's broader needs at every turn, taking all necessary precautions to ensure public health and safety. BEMP Education reached 5,032 students and adults through in-person contacts alone, engaging 48 different schools and community organizations throughout April of last year to today, and we're still going. Instruction was provided in person and remotely at field locations and in outdoor and on-campus classrooms through field monitoring collections and in study trips. We also offered an ongoing array of educational programming provided online through printable and electronic platforms, including self-led activities and video lessons. Moreover, university students participating in the Biology 408-508 internship course conducted field and lab work during this time. If this time has taught us anything, it is the deep value of engaging audiences through our broader ecosystem, encouraging us all to see ourselves connected to, rather than separate from, one another in our more than human world. Due to these shifts and challenges, BEMP's 2023 Crawford Symposium will look different than it has in the many years previous. Our hybrid format, including both online and in-person gatherings, is evidence of this. Our gathering together is also an honoring of Robin Wall Kimmerer's words and work. It's a creative display of the joy and inspiration that the earth offers, and an effort to continue to return that gift. May this year's Crawford presentation serve as a beautiful display of our community's creativity and transformation during this time. Given all of our need to pivot, I want to particularly recognize the ongoing efforts of our schools, our teachers, our students, and families for not only participating in our educational programming adventures, but for their willingness to show up exactly as they were amidst another difficult and trying year. Thank you for your joy and your laughter and all else that you brought to our team. To those of you in the audience, thank you for showing up in support of our youth and for all you do to assist BEMP in remaining an integral component of the Middle Rio Grande. We are all truly grateful. Enjoy the show.
Hi, my name is Layla, and what I think of BEMP is there are so much things to learn and things I have not learned. There is like such a fun experience that BEMP comes with. They're like a triple experience, fun, exciting, and adventurous. In all, I love BEMP and I really enjoy it. I also love how you helped me identify a porcupine in a tree. What I really liked about BEMP is I learned that if you grab a stick from a tree and you open it, and if there's a star, that means it's a cottonwood tree.
Hi, my name is Annie Montes, she, her, and hers, and I am an environmental educator with BEMP. One great way students can get involved with BEMP is by doing monthly monitoring. This can be done in the field, at our various sites, or on their very own campus. The next presentations will show us what students did for monthly monitoring and what they have done with the data. Enjoy!
Hi, my name is Rowan Listaway. I'm a student at Bosque School, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we do in BEMP. Every month, our grade splits into two groups in order to monitor the two BEMP sites near Bosque School, Savannah and Montano. We walk to the site we are monitoring that day, where we divide into smaller groups to collect leaf litter data and well depth data. We do temperature data and rain gauge data as a group. After we collect the necessary data and we have time, we play some sort of nature-related game like camouflage or echolocation. After we get home that night, we copy our data into a Google Doc that a teacher sends to you or now. Thank you. Hi, my name is Joseph Campbell. Over the last 10 years, BEMP has been working hard to preserve all of their data, and today we will be creating a graph to compare the last 10 years to today. With the recent drought, we can guarantee that the data will have a significant change over the years.
Thank you. My name is Tristan, and I'm going to be going over a graph on the Montano site. So, since 2019, the water levels have been staying the same, but there was a significant increase right before 2020. But after, the well depth before touching the water has only been past 200 centimeters 4 times, as you can see. According to information from the government on drought.government.com, New Mexico's most recent drought was in 2021. You can see a dip in the water starting in 2021 and happening 4 times until 2022. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sagan, and I'm going to go over the well depth at Savannah site. This graph shows the east well consistently having less water than the other wells, closely followed by the south well. The well that usually has the most water is the north well. Similarly to Montano's site, Savannah site had the highest levels of groundwater in 2019, right before 2020. In 2020, there was the biggest drought recorded in this graph, and in 2021, there was a drought of similar magnitude. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
BEMP! By Iris,
June,
Orion, Luke, and Hazel.
Some things we love about BEMP.
We get to be outdoors. We get to see animals in their natural habitat.
We get to help UNM gather data.
It's right by our school.
We get to learn about bosque ecosystem. What we do.
We gather clipboards, pencils, and data sheets.
We take a short walk to get to a site, either Montano or Savannah.
We split up into groups.
We collect well depth, leaf litters, rain gauge, etc.
We come back with our group and share our data that we collected for the day.
Well depths have gone down since September. From September to February, depths in both the Savannah and Montano sites have gone down over 50 centimeters. The depths have consistently changed over the seasons.
So as you can see here, we didn't collect all the wells, but you can see that it has lowered since September, and most of the wells stayed the same, like the north well and the nearby ditch, but some of the wells are dramatically different in each month.
This is our Montano graph, and you can see that most of the north and east wells stay at about the same place every month, even though that they do go down over the months. And then the center wells, they stay the same most of the time, and they are around the same area in the graph. Also, you can see that they have all gone down from September to February.
The Montano gauge is measured in millimeters, and we didn't collect the canopy gauge in November, but in October it had the highest numbers.
So for the Savannah gauges, September was really low for both of them. February was definitely the lowest month. October for the open gauge was the highest. Canopy gauge was basically around the same as September. And November, we barely collected those. So November is basically the lowest.
Also, we are so sorry about the spelling of gauge in these.
Yeah, one of us messed up.
Thank you for listening to our presentation!
Yay!
We are Lucas Sandoval and Cohen Burkett.
We will be talking about our amazing experience with BEMP.
Before we talk about our data, let's explain what BEMP is.
BEMP is a fun experience where we go into the bosque and gather information.
Some of the information we gather is seeing how much water is in the ground, what type of stuff falls to the ground, and how much rainfall there is.
BEMP is a very fun experience with a lot of learning opportunities.
Firstly, build friendships with each other.
Secondly, it makes a deeper understanding of how our bosque works.
Thirdly, it helps set up for the future and set a good life goal.
To conclude, BEMP helps us in a lot of different ways and is a great learning tool.
Now we're going to show you some graphs from our data. So this is the Montano well. On the left, you can see the north well, east well, center well, south well, west well, and nearby ditch. On the right side, you see depth in millimeters. We took this well data during the months of September, October, November, and February. Now, this is the wells in Savannah site, the same through the same months and pretty much the same.
I will be talking about the precipitation we found. In the Montano site, we put out an open gauge and a canopy gauge. We recorded through September, October, November, and February. And the depth is in millimeters. We did the same thing, but in the site of Savannah. We measured everything in millimeters and did the same months.
Thank you. All right, now one more thing we want to talk about. You might be wondering why this data is important. Well, here is why.
Firstly, it makes us have a bigger understanding of our bosque.
It also helps us understand how the bosque changes through time.
One more thing that it helps us with is bringing our whole community together.
To conclude, data is super important and great.
Thank you for listening to our BEMP presentation.
Have a great day.
I'm Liana. And I'm Sophia. We're going to be talking to you about what we enjoy about BEMPing and what we do.
BEMP is such an amazing experience.
Were you going to the bosque and also record data for the future years?
BEMP has been going on for about 30 years now. Students all over Bosque School were in BEMP field trips. In BEMP, we talk a lot about helping others and taking care of our bosque.
We enjoy the outside activities where we measure the canopy gauge, the open gauge, the groundwater, and the temperatures.
Some data that we had collected is how much water there is in the wells and how in the gauges, along with the temperature.
And when we go and look at the tubs, we collect what is inside of them and put them into paper bags. In conclusion, we really enjoy going on field trips.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tinley, and I'm going to be talking about the gauge precipitation for Montano and Savannah. So the blue is the open gauge, and the red is the canopy gauge. So we collected data from September, October, November, and February. And something I thought weird about Savannah was that both the canopy and the open gauge were both 0.5 millimeters instead of a difference, because normally the open gauge has more water precipitation than the canopy gauge. Thank you for listening to me.
Hello, I'm Ariana, and I'm going to be talking about the well depths. For the well depths, we collected during September, October, November, and February from Montano, and for Savannah, we collected them during October and February also. For October, the vein was between 200 and 300. Every November, it was between 78 and 212. For February, it was between 77 and 218. And then for Savannah, one of the highest was the east well, and one of the lowest is the west well, even though we only collect, it was either one of the lowest for the west well or the highest for another portion. Same with the east well. It was either one of the highest or one of the lowest.
Hello, I am Josie, and I'm going to be talking about the bigger picture with all 20 years of BEMP data and what we found interesting when we looked at that. So here I have a groundwater graph from 2011 to 2014. And what we noticed interesting about the 2014 in September was that the groundwater was around 170. And usually looking back at past years, it's around 190 to 200. So the water table actually rose in September. And looking back 2 months before, we saw that the water in July for 2014 was 80 millimeters. Usually it is between 50 and 60 millimeters. So piecing these two data together, we found that data links to our hypothesis that infiltration is delayed in the summer months. We can see that the water in September was better, but the rainfall was normal. The water table went up though because of this huge rainfall in July, delayed because the ground was hard. The ground is no longer hard after the monsoon season, and it infiltrates easily before drying up again before the hurricane season again. Why did this large amount of water rain down in July of 2014? Well, 2014's monsoon season was an average monsoon season, but usually the hurricane spans from June 1st to the end of November. But in 2014, it spanned from July 1st to the end of October. So it was just the same amount of rain, but in a smaller amount of time. So that is why July got more rainfall, which is then why the infiltration took a while because the ground was hard and later affected the September water table. Thank you for listening to our BEMP presentation.
We are fourth graders from Miss Richards' class at Elementary. Right now we're at the Sahara Tree. BEMP! Bosque! Ecosystem Monitoring Program.
BEMP taught me how to identify leaves. Now I can pick up a leaf and know where it came from.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Because of the rain, the grass is so big. This leaf is from the cottonwood tree. It has over 100 dots. Weird. And it has over 10 lines. Amazing.
That's cool, Rosalie. What do you have there?
It's a stick from a cottonwood tree. I learned it from BEMP.
Look at that leaf. OMG, let's observe it. Whoa, I found a cottonwood stick. Whoa. If you break cottonwood sticks open, then you find a star.
for ants. But they're so small. They're so strong. Smaller than a rock. So small. So strong. They can lift up to 10 times their weight. It emerges during the first spring thaw. But if you look closely, there is
Look in
four.
this picture.
Look in this picture.
One,
Two,
two,
three,
three,
and four. This is a horsetail, a plant that has joined stems. Branches go into whorls at joints. A fertile stalk has a cone-like head.
Wow, our bucket overflowed with tree litter.
Yeah, it did overflow. By the way, what's tree litter?
Tree litter is sticks and leaves that fall and other stuff that pops from trees.
Observation is to look closely. Maps are to find your way.
I wonder if there's seeds in there. I noticed there's like
BEMP! Bosque! Ecosystem Monitoring Program!
Hola, soy Alea y queremos presentarles nuestro proyecto intercurricular Bosque Alebrijes. ¿Pero qué son los alebrijes? Se preguntarán. Los alebrijes son una creación del arte popular mexicano, fabricadas a base de papel maché o también de figuras talladas de la madera del copal. En una breve historia, fueron creados por el artista cartonero mexicano Pedro Linares en la Ciudad de México en el año de 1936. Pedro Linares cayó enfermo y durante un día con alta fiebre vio animales combinados con alas, cuernos, ojos saltones, garras y colmillos feroces, con colores brillantes y una voz que les nombraba alebrijes, alebrijes, alebrijes.
Mi nombre es Jorge. Con esta participación y compartir queremos hacer vida uno de nuestros valores fundamentales como estudiantes de la Escuela Bosque. Ser una comunidad enraizada en el bosque del Río Grande, territorio ancestral del grupo indígena Pueblo. La historia cultural y ecológica del bosque es compleja y nos ofrece una ampliación extraordinaria de nuestras aulas, mientras que nos sirve como llamado a la acción para cuidar el medio ambiente y esta preciada fauna del bosque ribereño.
Mi nombre es Caterina. Quiero compartirles que para nuestro proyecto fue una gran utilidad en la creación de nuestros alebrijes, el apoyarnos del material educativo de BEMP que contiene icónicos animales de nuestro bosque ribereño.
Soy Eddie, junto con Lexi y Lucas, hablaremos del proceso para crear un alebrije. Nos centraremos en el proceso original de Pedro Linares. Utilizando papel, maché y cartón, primero te invitamos a elaborar un boceto de tu alebrije. Es de gran utilidad para que tengas una clara idea del alebrije que quieres crear.
Después de elaborar tu boceto, reúne todos los materiales. Ten presente que puedes hacer uso de materiales reciclados. Con el alambre vas a hacer un armazón o una estructura que define la forma de tu creación.
Antes de remojar el papel con el pegamento o engrudo, el engrudo es el producto casero a base de harina mezclado con agua que utilizan los cartoneros que crean piñatas y aplicarlo en capas. Tu base de alambre debe de estar cubierto por un par de capas de cinta adhesiva. Recuerda agregar extensiones de alas, antenas u otras partes para
resaltar tu alebrije. Cuando seca, puedes comenzar a trenzar y pintar los patrones y detalles que lo harán una pieza única.
Aquí con ustedes, Mila. Como estudiantes con herencia hispana es muy importante conocer más y mantener nuestras tradiciones con raíces culturales vivas. Recrear la técnica para elaborar nuestros alebrijes no solamente nos permitió aprender un poco más de este tesoro artesanal, nos permite transmitir, mantener ese arte en nuestra generación actual y futuras.
Gracias por la invitación para participar en este simposio. En nombre de mi grupo del 7º grado de la clase Herencia en Español de la Escuela Bosque. Recuerden, los alebrijes son importantes por su herencia y cultura para nuestra comunidad hispana, pero sobre todo son un homenaje a la diversidad. Por su atención, muchas gracias.
Hi, my name is Laura and I'm one of the BEMP educators, and today I'm here to present you some of the projects 9th grade students from college and career high school have been working on this semester. These projects are about litter on their neighborhoods. They have been walking around their neighborhoods, collecting data on different types of litter and where they accumulate, and if this accumulation might be due to weather patterns like storms or winds. At the end of this process, students have come up with a creative way to represent their data trends to a broader audience. Today they will be presenting their research projects and their creative pieces and showing you what are the trends of litter in our city. We hope that you enjoy and we hope to see you next year. Thank you.
My name is Zoe Rodriguez, and my project is litter data in Adobe Acres. First, we have my table of contents. There are 5 different segments in this project. My research question was, has litter in Adobe Acres over the first 3 months of 2023 caused an increase in social or environmental problems to residents? First, we have my background information. There is no doubt that litter is a growing issue in our environment and has continued to grow over time. What effects do the increased masses of litter have on people like you and me? Litter can ruin our earth worse than we could imagine. This would not only affect us, but it might cause a complete change in the way we define everyday life. It's important to learn where litter comes from and who is throwing it out on the streets. In order to see the trend of increase, we need to know what kind of person is the cause of litter. Many plastics cause a constant decrease in many environmental necessities like garden production and wildlife stability. This can cause a decrease in food supply and cause mass food shortages. We must figure out why litter causes these problems and how we can fight it. We need to understand the root of litter and its effects before we can solve it. Seeing the effects of litter in a smaller and more confined piece of land can help us get an idea of what it might be like on a larger scale. This is a map of Adobe Acres. Everything that is highlighted in yellow is where I got my data. Next, we have my methods. There were 3 crucial pieces to this project. First, I researched about life before 2023 and what litter may have looked like. During this step, I wrote down my information. In step 2, after writing down my information, I went out for around 30 to 40 minutes a day, deeply analyzing litter and people's overall emotions toward it. In order to do this, I looked at people's facial expressions, or even maybe things they mumbled to themselves while seeing the trash before them. In Adobe Acres, quite a few people like to take a stroll of the community, and so it was fairly easy to get this information. In step 3, I compared my initial research to my newly found data in order to answer my research question. Next, we have my results. In this graph, it shows 2 years, 2022 and 2023. It also shows the pounds of litter. In 2023, you can see that there's around 125 pounds of litter that were collected in the 3-month period. In order to gain this data, I weighed all of the litter. When I came across a piece of litter on the street, I picked it up, put it in a trash bag, and continued on. In 2022, you can see that it's around 100, which is quite a bit less than it was in 2023. The data that I got for the pounds in 2022 was still in a 3-month period in order to keep everything the same. In this graph, this is the amount of complaints due to litter. Adobe Acres is a tight-knit community full of family and just close friends. So in order to gain this data, I interviewed them and asked them how they felt in 2022 to the litter and how they felt in 2023. After gaining this data, I made it into percentages. In 2023, the amount of complaints about the litter is up to about 30%, and in 2022, it was only around 5%, which is an extreme increase. Lastly, we have my conclusion. In the end, we find that litter over the last 3 months in Adobe Acres has not only grown, but caused a negative impact on people. Finding the displeasure many experience due to litter is not a surprise. The amount of litter in Adobe Acres is growing, and it needs to be stopped before we can do more damage. The pounds of litter taken out and found in Adobe Acres is quite big given the fact it's a smaller community. On a local scale, the litter is causing a deterioration of the people, but on a global level, it can cause the death of many animals and the breakdown of farms and other necessities. Here you can see a picture of one of the pieces of litter that I picked up and found. It's best if we all take action. During this project, any litter I came across, I picked up. Though it might not be yours, you should still help clean our planet. There are many ways you can help. Volunteer, posting online, or even just going out and doing it yourself. If you want to volunteer, contact Parks and Recreation Department at this number. Here's another piece of litter that I found. We have a creativity project that I incorporated into my main project. As you can see, I baked a cake. The top layer represents before 2023, around December 2022 to January 2023. The bottom layer is after 2023, around February 2023 to April. The green ball is people affected by litter per 100. Though it may not look like a lot, that is a lot of people given the fact each one of those is 100. The blue balls are the amount of litter on streets per 150 pieces. Again, it might not look a lot, but when you take into consideration the number that holds, it grows. The purple ball is the amount of litter picked up per 25 pieces. The ratio of litter picked up to the ratio of litter found is very little, and we need to do something about that. This is my works cited piece of litter that I found, and thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Garrick Tam, and today I'll be showing you my litter survey project. So first, what is litter? Litter is the accumulation of waste such as plastic, paper, glass, and other things that's been discarded in inappropriate locations. This can lead to a decrease in an environment's health since organisms are being poisoned. For this project, I walked around the CNM main campus every Thursday at 2:40 p.m. to determine whether or not the amount of litter changed over the course of 10 weeks. The question I set out to answer is, has the amount of litter on the CNM main campus increased or decreased over the course of January 12th to March 23rd? My hypothesis is, if I collect litter around the CNM main campus every Thursday at 2:40 p.m. from January 12th to March 23rd, then the amount of litter will decrease because less people spend their time outside during the winter and spring. So for this project, I wanted to determine whether or not the amount of litter on the CNM main campus changed over a 10-week period. Every Thursday at 2:40, I'd walk the same route to ensure that my results were as consistent as possible. Before walking, I'd record the weather, such as precipitation and temperature, and as I walked, I looked out for types of litter, such as plastic, paper, glass, metal, scat, and other things, such as cigarettes, until I got to the end point. The picture on the top is a map of the route I took every time I went to collect litter, and the image on the bottom is one of my recording sheets. So, after recording for 10 weeks, I used Google Sheets to tally up all my results and I put them into graphs. I utilized mainly bar charts to show my data, and I also added a trend line to determine how the amount of litter was changing. So for all of the graphs, the x-axis represents the week that I went to collect, and the y-axis represents the each amount of item I found. So first, I'm comparing the total amount of litter over the course of 10 weeks using a scatter plot and a bar chart, which seem to both be trending down slightly. Next, here are two graphs comparing plastic and paper. Plastic seems to be going down while paper is making a very slight trend upwards. Then I have graphs comparing the amount of glass and metal, which seem to be trending down drastically. And finally, these graphs compare the amount of animal scat and other litter such as cigarettes. Although they both have slight trends, scat seems to be on the rise while other litter seems to be falling. Therefore, the amount of litter on the CNM main campus changes over the course of 10 weeks. After I totaled the amount of different types of litter and found a trend, I was able to deduce that there's been an overall decrease in litter, with a few exceptions, such as animal scat and paper. Overall, it's great that the CNM main campus is seeing an overall decrease in litter over the course of January 12th to March 23rd. Us students can help maintain this trend by disposing of waste in appropriate locations, such as trash cans. We can also help pick up litter to reduce the risk of poisoning animals. The final part of my presentation is my creative project. For this, I used a Rubik's Cube to represent the amount of litter for each category. I made each color on a small cube to represent a certain value, which would then be arranged in a way that would result in the total amount for each given category. I created 7 unique patterns to display the total amount of plastic, paper, glass, metal, animal scat, and other litter, as well as a pattern for all of my litter combined to compare with the other categories. And these pictures show all the different patterns I came up with to represent each category of litter, and when the values are added up, they should equal the total amount. I'll give you a few seconds to look at it. And here's a key if you couldn't see it clearly in the previous slide. And thanks for listening to my presentation. Have a wonderful day.
Hi everyone, Shelby Bazan here. I'm BEMP Environmental Educator, and this year we had the privilege of working with Inez Elementary. We worked with their 2nd, 3rd, and 5th graders. We learned about the ecosystem on their campus, and we also made some art out of nature around the area and the environment around the area. So I really hope you enjoy their videos. Thank you. During our time together, we explored the ecosystem on the school's campus, learned about adaptation through different bird beaks, and created our own macroinvertebrates after learning about metamorphosis. Enjoy some clips from our time together during Science Club. Thank you, Inez Rockets, for having us.
Leaves, a bunch of leaves.
A bunch of leaves. What are you going to do with them?
Glue them to my paper.
To make what?
To make, I forgot.
Do you remember what they're called? What we're making? Starts with an M.
I got way too many leaves.
A mandala, right, exactly, good job. You got too many leaves? Wait, you probably did, but you could make them into smaller pieces for your mandala.
No. Hi, I'm Jay. I'm from Inez Elementary. I am 8 years old. I'm in Miss Frederick's class. I'm in 2nd grade. And my favorite thing about Science Club is I get to go outside.
My name is Madison. I come at Inez Elementary School, and my favorite thing about Science Club is that I like to play with the do binoculars.
Hi, my name is Samira, and I'm in 3rd grade, and I'm from Inez Elementary School. And I like finding things from nature, and science, science clubs.
My name is Samuel. I'm in 2nd grade at Inez. I'm in Science Club. I like nature because I love it.
Hello, my name is Bradley, and I'm in 3rd grade. My favorite thing about outdoor science club
is working at the outdoor classroom with binoculars.
My name is Paris, and I like going outside because I like the breeze, and I like going outside because we can look at nature and we can use cool stuff to see close. And I draw this picture. It's of the stuff I picked out here, and it's from a really pretty tree, and I think that's it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Good job.
Hi, my name is Matt Leister. I'm the science manager with BEMP. And another way students can participate in BEMP is through our UNM BEMP intern class. Up next, I'd like to introduce our graduate and undergraduate presenters. Thank you and enjoy.
Hey everyone, my name is Grant Forberg and I'm a student at UNM, and I'll be presenting on my poster about the Bosque collections. So the Bosque is a dear part of the New Mexican soul. We have it right next to Albuquerque. It's 1 million people that live right next to it, but there's very few resources that kind of want to catalog the floral diversity of the area. One of the major organizations is BEMP, where they look at litterfall data, cover data, and all other sorts of ecological long-term data. But unfortunately, something missing from these collections is actual collections where you can get a physical specimen. These physical specimens are important for the area, as you'd like to catalog it later for either genetics or checking out the phenology at the time or tracking the environment over time. So having an actual physical thing is very important. So to check out what we have here, I did a little synthesis of it by doing 2 different repositories, SciNet and GBIF, which I put together, cleaned out, used R, and now I have complete collections of the Middle Rio Grande Bosque. I started out at the borders at Cochise Lake, and I went all the way down to Elephant Butte, and that's like the area cataloged as the Middle Rio Grande Bosque. So what I found was there was 755 collections there. 200 are held out of state, and the other 555 are held here. I wanted to check out how these collections differed over time, what counties are holding the most, or the most common species compared to the occurrences versus the cover data. So to do this, I downloaded all the data and I started working with it. One of the things that I first noticed was as collections started in 1800, they've been going all the way up to 2020, but it's been a nice linear rise with weird stretches where maybe people put more effort into collecting over like a unified effort. And unfortunately though, over the last 5 years, collections have plummeted here and it's almost 0, and the last one was in 2020. And this data needs to continue so we can get an accurate timeline of the Bosque over time. So that's something that's definitely need to be worked on in the future. Some of the most common families I found were Asteraceae, Poaceae, and Cyperaceae. And these are all like flowering plants that are smaller and grasses and a little bit more charismatic because they have flowers to them. So that was kind of noted as the most common families, but they're also the most common across New Mexico, so the riparian didn't seem to influence it too much. Over county-wise, Socorro is about half the area of the Middle Rio Grande Bosque, but it only accounted for about 40% of collections due to holes in the area with it not being collected near roads and less populated areas. Bernalillo, while only about like 15% of the total area of the Bosque polygon I made, they had like a significant quantity of actual collections at around 28%. And this is due to being closer to roads, urban centers, just easier to get out and like get those collections going. What we found as the most collected species was Yerba Mansa, which is popular in the community with medicinal uses and other programs for its cultivation and preservation. Looking at the most common one being Yerba Mansa, it was different compared to observations and actual cover at the BEMP sites. The most populated, like cover-wise, was the poplar tree, or the cottonwood tree, and the Russian olive. And the most recorded in iNaturalist for observation-wise was similar, with salt cedar and Russian olive being the most. What we found, though, is that yerba mansa and Russian olive were the only two species where you could see the same amount of high occurrences and collections, while the collections didn't really favor too many exotic species like our salt cedar. They favored more native species that were flowering, and this is bad because exotic species are slowly replacing a lot of the native species in the habitat, and this should be looked at in the future as the majority of them will be more exotic, and looking forward as conditions continue to dry out in the bosque. So looking forward, we should spend more time focusing on areas that are less collected in counties like Socorro, where there's huge gaps in spots that haven't been collected, and the Pueblo communities right south of Cochiti Dam. These areas are not near roads or urban centers, and the collections there are lacking. I think a lot of the other collection focuses should be based on underrepresented families. That's about 30 of the major plant species families are not represented, with only one collection in the whole area, which needs to be looked at a lot more. So looking forward, students of UNM or NMSU should look at collections moving forward in areas that are kind of not looked at as much, and underlooked families going forward. But looking at it right now, we need a lot of work to do to get the collections up where we need. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eric Fernandez. I'm a student here at UNM, and I'd like to talk about some of the great opportunities available with BEMP. So fires have become increasingly prevalent in the Southwest and have forced us not to postpone our ideas about successive ecosystem communities, and therefore our methods for aiding in their establishment. During the summer of 2022, there was a fire that burned the areas immediately east of the Bosque School, an area which we're going to call North of the Deep Dark Woods, NDDW for short. Afterwards, winds swept up the fires across the river into the Aldo Forest area. A month before, though, this NDDW fire, there was the Reynolds Forest Fire in Belen, and then about a year before the NDDW fire, there was a fire in Tingley Beach, which is just south of Central, on the east side of the river. Whether we like it or not, fires are a main driver in any ecosystem. In this case, the ecosystems not only hold great value, but are situated next to and within the city. Some of the aims of current investigations in our ecosystems entail the understanding of how to manage the bosque in light of its future. One viewpoint is that there are complications involved with restoration, since this is a viewpoint based on the premise that ecosystems are reversibly changing and its water needs aren't being met, and water availability is projected to lessen. However, there is the difficulty in seeing the end of this beautiful landscape presented by the bosque prior to and throughout the establishment of the Albuquerque metropolitan area. We naturally can't quite imagine ourselves without the serenity that it provides. Perhaps restoration could be worth it. Since these two things oppose each other, we need to address them with a sense of urgency. To do that, we must first study these burn sites and their impacts on our communities and our beloved bosque. So our vegetation communities are responding to these fires regardless of our preparedness to address the issue. How are they responding? Well, that's where BEMP comes in. In the summer of 22, we, BEMP, were able to run a pilot course study on these fires and their impacts. We took advantage of the timing of the fires and began our investigations. So here we go. Here, this is a graph of NDDW 2 weeks post-burn, and we can see that after the fire there, exotics showed regrowth while native woody species didn't. Both root sprouts from existing burn species and shoot sprouts from the bases of the burn species were present for exotic species. Cottonwood and currant had no regrowth. Russian olive and salt cedar had the highest amount of regrowth post-burn. Reynolds Forest was a little bit of an outlier in the sense that there actually were native comebacks, whereas the other two had hardly any. And so here we can see that we've got currant coming in. And Reynolds Forest exhibited similar characteristics as NDDW, where no shoot sprouts were found for the native cottonwoods. But all exotic species studied had shoot sprouts, and all except elm had root sprouts. Now, when it comes to the biopark site, there were no salt cedar or Russian olives within the study plots, but large salt cedar with regrowth were present just outside the plots. There were also elms and trees of heaven just outside the plot with robust growth. There was very little cottonwood regrowth, and the majority of the plots were exotic herbaceous species. Here we have a graph for average resprout heights, and we can see that salt cedar and Russian olive seem to outcompete cottonwood at the initial stages and onset of repopulating the burned area. However, there were a couple of cottonwoods that were pretty tall. Here we go, around 60 centimeters, maybe a little more at the biopark area. So suppose that's a little bit promising for our cherished cottonwoods. So let's go back to these studies. We had one at, let's say, 2 weeks, then we got one at 2 months, then we had one at a year away from the initial fire. And one thing to note that stood out to me was the way that each one of these changed by a factor of 10 with respect to time, which kind of was analogous to maybe a food transfer pyramid where energy transfers at about 1/10 the rate. That would need a lot more looking into and subsequent studies, but it was interesting nonetheless, which brings me to the second thing. In order for these studies to become really effective, ongoing study needs to be the case, and continuous monitoring needs to also be happening. And thirdly, I think that would be very well done with BEMP.
Every year, we at BEMP have the distinct honor of awarding an individual BEMP's Crawford Award, established to recognize people who support and uphold science, education, and stewardship. This year's recipient for the Crawford 2023 Award has been a phenomenal presence each month for many years, not only in our data collection efforts, but also in the lives of the youth he encourages. With this, I pass the baton to Matt Leister, who has the honor of announcing this year's award recipient.
Hi, my name is Matt Leister, and it is my honor to present the 2023 BEMP Crawford Award to Mark Hedge. Mark has been a teacher for 29 years before retiring in 2020, and during that time, and even past retirement, Mark shows his dedication to students by coaching for various programs, including Envirothon, Project Del Rio, Dia Del Rio, and participating in BEMP. Now, Mark shows this dedication, one way he shows this dedication is by continuing his support of these programs past retirement, and by driving his students over 100 miles one direction just to do monthly monitoring with BEMP. Mark's influence on his students is undeniable, and his support of students are undeniable. Many of his students have gone on to create careers, not only in the sciences, but in other fields as well. So it is a great honor for me to be providing this award to Mark. And on behalf of everyone at BEMP, and with the 2023 Envirothon State Champions, we say thank you, Mark, for your dedication to environmental education.
Well, thank you, guys. This means a whole lot to me. I don't know if I'll use them. They may just sit right on my dresser. Thank you.
Hello everyone! We would like to thank all of the participants in this year's Crawford Symposium, as well as our participants, funders, partners, and stakeholders in all of the BEMP activities this year. If you'd like to donate to BEMP, please visit bemp.org/donate.
On behalf of all of us at BEMP, we say
Thank you! Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to some of our graduate students. We have, first up is going to be Cassandra Miller talking about their project, and then we have Hannah Miller after that, so I will invite Cassandra up. Oh, sorry. Everything is wild today. So we are going to move on to Inez after our in-person speakers. So Cassandra, you still can come up. We will play that once we get everything wrapped up with our in-person speakers. Go Cassandra!
Thanks, hi! I'm just gonna wait for a second for my PowerPoint to go up, but I'm really happy to be here today. Will you be my clicker? Great, thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Cassandra. I'm a PhD student at UNM. I work at Saviera, which is the long-term ecological research site that's connected with BEMP. Today I'll be speaking a little bit about my science journey, a little bit less about my research, and the title of my talk is Nuestra Tierra, Ecology, Roots, and Home. Next. Thanks. So to begin, I'm starting off, I grew up in New Mexico. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And if you've spent any time in New Mexico, you know that we're really a land-based people. We are really connected to the land, and we start that relationship at an early age. Growing up, I would help plaster our adobe home, which was mostly me playing in the mud, helping out with our community acequia days, and these were lessons taught both at home and also at school. Growing up in a small town, you're really excited by the time you reach high school to leave your small town sometimes, and I was definitely one of those. I knew I was interested in the environment, but I was also really excited to try new things and move away for college. And because of wonderful mentors and teachers in high school, I ended up applying to Grinnell College, which is a small liberal arts school in Iowa. Next slide. So moving to Iowa, it was this wild experience. I knew nothing about Iowa, I knew nobody there. It felt like I was moving to the tropics in a lot of ways. If you can tell by these pictures, it is super green. Rain is really dependable and it falls a lot. And so it was really my first time being exposed to, monocrop agriculture, those tall cornfields and soybean fields surrounding the prairie, surrounding the town. They're really bad, but they also felt really wonderful and wondrous and magical. I had never seen anything like that before. Moving to Iowa, I took classes in almost every subject, but it was really when I found biology that I felt like I found a home. And that was through my first ecology class and my first fungal biology class, where I learned that you could study interconnections. All the BEMP kids are way ahead of me in understanding things, but it was all new to me. And this led me to be interested in research and brought me back to New Mexico. Next slide. In 2014, I came back as an REU student, a research experience for undergrads. So I'm really highlighting experiences to tell all your students about. Go home and share. So I came back and I moved to the desert and I did aquatic biology. My summer project was looking at the aquatic macroinvertebrate, all the little critters in all the different wells and springs around the site. And it was a really wonderful experience. It was the first time I did research, the first time I realized you could study deserts. I also learned New Mexico was a desert. I didn't really put that together before I went to Iowa. And so it was really influential, and it really shaped how I saw the world, and I fell in love with long-term research. After this experience, I decided maybe I wanted to learn more about desert ecology. And so I applied to study abroad, and I went to South Africa. Next slide, please. Studying abroad in South Africa, this is with the Organization for Tropical Studies. They do phenomenal research programs for students. We were basically travelers. We were, lucky enough to go from different national park to nature preserve, doing small experiments along the way. I studied how humans interacted with the environment. I looked at humans as vectors for seed dispersal in these areas. So I did interviews and asked people if I could brush their shoes and check for seeds and brush their dogs and look for seeds and see if there are any trends. But what really stood out to me from this experience was, even though I was surrounded by these really charismatic, wonderful creatures, it was here where I realized, actually, I really like plants and I like soil. These animals are great, but the plants and how they interact with the world were really where my interest lay. So when I came back from South Africa and was finishing up college, I thought about grad school, but I didn't quite feel ready to study. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so I ended up applying for this fellowship through my college that took me back to South Africa, and I worked at a long-term research station in Namibia. Next slide. So Namibia has one of the oldest and driest deserts of the world. While I was there, I got to help out on projects that range from smoke interactions with cloud formation, looking at seven-legged spiders, or seven stone spiders. They make these perfect 7 stone circles to make their little burrows, and like scorpion tours. But mostly what I was there for was for teaching. This was a fellowship that gave me hands-on training to students of all ages and backgrounds. I worked with over 1,000 learners, but the programs that were really close to my heart were the essentially research experience for undergrads that I led. And so these are 4 of my students. These were my GoBeBEB trippers, the G trippers. They were there for 5 months where I helped each of the students develop their own 5-month research project that they got to present, much like a Crawford Symposium, but in the desert. And it was really wonderful, and all of my students have gone on to do really great things, and one of them will be coming to UNM this summer for the isotope camp. So if you're interested in learning more about Namibia, please let me know. And while I was here, I realized I really like deserts. I didn't know what I was going to do next, and I came back. I tried water policy for a little bit in California and decided really what I wanted to do was come back home. New Mexico is a really special place. And here I am. I feel so lucky. I am now a grad student at UNM. I do all my work at Sabieta. I study how climate change is impacting plants, their roots, and the soil communities around them, and how we can promote resiliency to drought in our ecosystems, which feels very, very special to me to be connected. And so that was kind of my journey. I guess this is just a call to honor your place, and I really hope that our students that are coming through the BEMP program appreciate all that they're learning so early on, and know that there are all these opportunities afterwards that they can do through science. So, thank you. Thank you for listening, and thanks to many people on this slide, including my family and my advisors and mentors.
Thank you, Cassandra. So we are going to get set up for our next presenter, Hannah. And once we do that, they will get started. So give us just a moment. Does anyone have any jokes they want to say? Is that a no? You do? June? Come on, June.
Okay, why do nurses like red crayons?
Like red crayons?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any guesses? Why do nurses like red crayons? Okay, tell us.
Because sometimes they have to draw blood.
You want to know that? Or is that it?
I know I have other. Oh, okay. Why did the couple go to the gym?
Anyone? Why did the couple go to the gym? All right, tell us.
Because they wanted their relationship to work out.
That's good. Yeah, thanks for I don't know.
I know I do know more of it.
That's okay. All right, everyone give a hand to June. Thank you, June. That was a great intersection. All right, I think we're ready to go, and I will introduce Hannah Miller. Thank you.
I'm going to try and not use the mic. I have some notes I need to hold on to, so if you can't hear me, let me know, okay? So welcome. My name is Hannah Miller, and I am currently graduating from UNM from a dual master's in community and regional planning and water resources. I recently defended my professional project research a couple weeks ago on the role of citizen science in ecosystem management, and I've modified my presentation a little bit for this presentation with you guys. I'm really happy to be here today to share this with you. Mostly just been around academics, so it's nice to see some warm BEMP faces. Okay, slide. So citizen science programs and data have been expanding globally with recent increases in technology and the accessibility to smartphones. Citizen science has also been expanding as a field of research and asking questions about what are we doing with all of this data. Long-term ecological monitoring data plays an essential role in ecosystem management, without which managers would basically be guessing. Data reflecting trends is becoming increasingly relevant to managers looking to make adaptive management decisions in the face of climate change and the volatility of climate change. A UNM thesis was published a few years ago in 2015 by Cameron Weber, and the name of the paper was Citizen Science for Whom? The study included a pretty exhaustive list of 18 interviews with many different administrators connected to the Bosque, not necessarily those that use BEMP data, just kind of a pretty inclusive list. Her study sought to reveal what the barriers to use of citizen science data are, and she identified 5 barriers: a lack of time or staff, priorities driven by funding, lack of requirement to make evidence-based decisions, lack of immediately available information, uncertainty of leadership priorities. My research begins with Weber's research by acknowledging that her study reveals that data is being used. The data is being used by some managers, and wanting to learn more about how that data is being used and like which data sets are interesting to them and how are they using them, what are they using them for. Slide. BEMP is the only citizen science program offering long-term ecological monitoring that is utilized by managers to make decisions in the study area. One other program exists called Nature's Notebook, which you might be familiar with, and they have a more narrow focus on phenology studies. Nature's Notebook wasn't included in this research. It just is not, it's not as relevant to the managers in terms of overall ecosystem management decision making. BEMP's role was considered within the ecosystem management framework to provide context to responses provided by interviewees. Slide. Here's a map of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District jurisdictional area, which represents pretty closely the extent of the study area of this research, which is the Bosque ecosystem from Cochiti Dam to 162 miles downstream to San Marcial, New Mexico. The Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District states that it manages about 30,000 acres of bosque. The 1993 Bosque Biological Management Plan, which is an important comprehensive management plan for the study area, indicates that the bosque had been reduced to 20,000 acres by 1990, which was a reduction of 50% from 1918 data. So there's a large discrepancy in public understanding of the current extent of the bosque. While the extent is unclear, the statement from MRGCD can let us assume that it has jurisdictional management over the majority of the study area. Slide. I identified 2 plans that contain comprehensive information about the ecosystem: the Bosque Biological Management Plan from 1993 and the Conservation Action Plan, the Middle Rio Grande Conservation Action Plan from 2015. Although the Bosque Biological Management Plan is dated, it's still a key reference to managers. The Conservation Action Plan is still in the early stages of the planning process, with the first document focusing on ecosystem assessment. Neither plan communicates an agenda, but it seems the Conservation Action Plan will eventually. I was told I had like 10 minutes. I'll skip ahead here to slide. So the interviewees that were interviewed here are the Army Corps of Engineers, Bureau of Reclamation, Army Corps, City of Albuquerque Open Spaces, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, AMAFCA, the Save Our Bosque Task Force, and I also interviewed BEMP. Slide. So this is a table of the data that is of interest to these different management agencies. The agencies are listed on the top and the data sets are listed on the left-hand side. So you can see that the most popular data sets are vegetation and groundwater data. And some organizations like AMAFCA are really only focused on water resources, so they're only interested in those kinds of data. The primary purpose for accessing BEMP data for most interviewees related broadly to bosque restoration project management and planning. The research suggests that BEMP data is an important data source informing managers on long-term trends of various ecosystem variables specific to this study area. BEMP data has played a critical role in restoration projects and is particularly helpful in identifying the suitability of sites for different types of plantings. All BEMP data sets inform baseline data for Army Corps and Bureau of Reclamation projects and provide a data source for various project phases, planning, construction, and post-construction monitoring. The Corps and BOR said that BEMP data goes into agency planning management documents like environmental assessments and feasibility studies, which inform managers about what's possible and feasible for project goals. BEMP data is extremely relevant to managers in reaches where groundwater fluctuates significantly. In some locations, BEMP data is the only data source relevant to meet project needs. BEMP data is significant to ecosystem management in the study area, but the organization's role in public education is also seen as very significant to overall ecosystem outcomes. In conclusion, the research reflects that government agencies are in fact using BEMP data to make decisions. BEMP data provides critical understanding to managers and the public about this changing ecosystem. It provides the long-term data that allows managers to see trends for different variables in the system and make it possible for them to make the best informed decisions while contending with so many challenges. This research acknowledges that BEMP holds a unique position politically in the ecosystem management framework as it's connected to the bosque through science and education and through data production and resource managers. This position should be remembered in the future, in future comprehensive planning efforts. Climate change and the cottonwood decline are larger contextual challenges that managers don't have control over, and a shift in the management framework that reflects a sense of urgency and sets an agenda to achieve consensus comprehensive priorities is something that managers and administrators should consider to improve the efficiency in management activities as well as in citizen science data collection. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Sandra. That was, I think it was really amazing to see how our data is used and that this data that all of the students have been presenting on and throughout the years that is really important data. So I am going to introduce our next person, Richard Moore. So Richard Moore is with Los Jardines Institute, and he is going to be talking well, but he's also a community organizer and very much part of the Mountain View community, which is where we are right now. Do you want the mic? Yes. There you go.
Thank you very much. I'm replacing the other co-coordinator, actually, of Los Jardines Institute, Sofia Martinez. So in that replacement, we have not brought forward anything to show. So you're just going to have to listen to me for a few minutes. I just wanted to welcome everyone, particularly the BEMP. You know, the BEMP students and the faculty and the staff and the volunteers have just been absolutely incredible. I think you all would agree because you're a part of that. And I think we just needed to give a great round of applause to the students that presented on the videos, because that's an example of the kind of work that BEMP's doing and the kind of work that's needed for our community, for our children, for full participation. So thank you very much, and thank you to the students. As I said, my name is Richard Moore. I'm co-coordinator of Los Jardines Institute, the Gardens Institute. Our children actually were born and raised in this community. And so we've lived here in the Mountain View neighborhood for close to 50 years. And I've been involved in community organizing, community activism, coalition building, and making the relationships between grassroots communities in the city, in the state, in the region, in the country, and the world, because we do a lot of international work at the same time. We also run a farm, which we say on the other side of the river. And so based on that then, we formed a farmers cooperative. I think the intersections between the Bosque, the river, and the various issues that's being talked about is very important, obviously to livelihood of our history, our culture, our health, our safe and well-being, both as community members and workers in communities throughout New Mexico. I just wanted to give just a very brief explanation so you know some of the work that we're engaged in. One, as I mentioned, I'm co-coordinator of Los Jardines Institute. I'm also co-chair, was just appointed in February of the Mayor's Committee, Oversight Committee on Justice 40. I was also initially appointed and reappointed just very recently by the President to co-chair the White House Council on Environmental and Economic Justice, and I sit on several other boards and convenings, both nationally and internationally. This facility that you're living in, that you're presently in, is an example of the kind of work that this community, the Mountain View community, has done here for many, many years. I will keep my comments very, very short, but what I will say is just to give you a general idea of this community and a little bit of experience about the way that many of our relatives and our neighbors were on Tiwa territory. And as you know, if you go south on 2nd, where 2nd dead ends, our neighbors is the Pueblo of Isleta. If we continued south, if we stayed south, then you would see fertilizer plants, feedlots, junkyards, just many, many facilities that hasn't been so healthy, not only to the health and safety and well-being of our residents, but at the same time, the contamination of our water, contamination of our air, and contamination of our soil. Just a quick example again, if you went to the west, and then you would see, or would have seen at one point, the largest hog farm, and then many other facilities that are to the west. If we go to the east, you know that we're neighbors or downhill from Sandia National Laboratory and also the Albuquerque Airport. Then if we go north, for those that may remember, if we worked our way further down 2nd, heading north, you may remember, for those of you who traveled that route, that particular corridor, we'll call it, was called Perfume Alley, because we house the only sewage facility in the city of Albuquerque. Now remember, we don't live in the city, we're in the county right now, okay? We house the city's largest sewage facility, and then also Schwartzman's meatpacking company. So as a child, even myself, or as a youngster, we would be driving from downtown, heading here to Mountain View. We used to talk with each other. We play games with each other to see who could hold their breath all the way from where the Hispanic Cultural Center is today, all the way down here, past actually Rio Bravo. See which one of us could hold our breath the longest, because that's the kind of stench that our people were accustomed to. So I just wanted to give you that. I just wanted to say that this is a very vibrant community. We're proud of our community. There's a lot of history here. It's an historic agricultural community. And some, on the other hand, would say, well, if you didn't like it, if you didn't like all that, why don't you just move out? I think very clearly you all can understand that it's not just a case of picking up and moving out. There's many other things that kind of go along with that. And to keep it very, very short, several years back, for those of you that may or may not remember, our community here was evacuated on several occasions because we're also surrounded by chemical storage facilities and also by tank farms, Chevron and many of the other tank farms. So this is an example. The Mountain View Community Center is an example of what many communities have and what many of our community, our members here, would like to have. And so this community center is a prime example. The staff is just absolutely incredible here. We're running children's programs out of here. We're running programs for senior citizens, and then some refer to them as elders, but some of us would prefer to be called senior citizens. But all respect to our elders. In 1991, we redefined environmentalism and conservationism as where we live, work, play, pray, and go to school. So that, many would say, opened up the can of worms from environmentalism and conservationism, and some of what has been presented today, and some of the work, the significant work that BEMP's doing, also plays a major significant impact on the research and data gathering that's important for us to present our cases. We redefined environmentalism as where we live, work, play, pray, and go to school. And so based upon that, then that's where a lot of what you will see today of this administration, the Biden administration, and the development of the White House Council on Environmental Justice, and many of the climate presidential executive orders. And last Friday, President Biden in the Rose Garden announced the presidential executive order on environmental justice. So I want to give you all the utmost respect for the work that you're all doing. We would invite you to visit with us. You know, further down the road here is the VDO, the Valle de Oro National Wildlife Refuge. We're on the leadership. We're founding members of the VDO. This community not only hosts the federal refuge, but this community owns the VDO and the South Valley, the residents of the South Valley. So we're proud of that. We're on the leadership team. It's the only federal refuge in the United States that has an environmental and economic justice strategic plan attached to it. So lastly, what that means to us is that we surveyed over 500 members, residents, door to door in this community, and asked them, one, if we were to house a federal refuge, what do you think that the role of that federal refuge should be in our neighborhood, in our communities? And as you can imagine, the ambassadors to the Valle de Oro National Wildlife Refuge is the students, the elementary students at Mountain View Elementary School. Because those, like what we've seen and what we were seeing on this video, those children are the ones that go there, learn about birds and ducks, and learn about different kind of animals and so on. And so when they go back home to their parents, then they encourage their parents to also go to the refuge and participate in activities. I don't want to go on much longer, but what I do want to say to you is that this has been a long history of struggle. And when I was a youngster, like many of you, in 1967 or 1968, we were invited to northern New Mexico to a small village, to a potato farm, and invited by women and men elders. 3.5 days later, we talked about history, we talked about culture, we told stories, the guitars came out, the stories came out, and 3.5 days later when we left, when we were preparing to leave the village in the north, our elders reminded us of 3 things. They said, young sisters and brothers, with all respect, it's been an absolutely fantastic convening that's taken place on this land today and for the last 3 days. And we leave you, sisters and brothers, with 3 things to keep in mind for the rest of your life. And that's what almost brings tears to my eyes seeing what these students have done. Because the three things that our elders have asked us to remember for the rest of our lives is, one, never forget where we come from, two, remember whose shoulders we stand on, and always give back to others what's been given to us. That's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what these children are doing. And so welcome to the Mountain View community. For those that have not visited Los Salinas Institute or our farm, you're welcome. Some of the students have been there, and we're looking forward to an ongoing relationship and a partnership with BEMP, because the incredible work that's taking place, we want to engage our children. Thank you, thank you, thank you. With all respect, have the blessed evening and a very safe trip to your back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and history with us about this community and the impacts that it has faced, and the continued persistence of it as well. So now, and one thing that I do want to mention is that to learn more about what Richard was talking about, I definitely encourage you all to visit the Friends of Valle de Oro's website. They do have a full virtual toxic tour of the area, which highlights a lot of the Superfund sites in this area, and then they also just have some history in the area. I think it's really important to remember that. And I will introduce now our last speaker, Dr. Gregory Cajete. He's an author and educator, so thank you so much.
Well, this is certainly a pleasure to have this opportunity to say a few words to you. I first should, have a greeting to you. Segnitamo, as we say in Tewa. I am Greg Cajete from Santa Clara Pueblo, and I've been a professor, I think, for about 46 years. Started out at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then came here to the University of New Mexico, where I was Director of Native Studies for 18 years. Just retired in 2020, just when the COVID hit, and just coming out my den, as my grandson would tell me, to just start again. And so this is one of my first large presentations. My talk today is really just going to be just general thoughts and perspectives that I think are important to really keep in mind, because when you talk about environments, you must always, as Richard has just mentioned, you must always talk about community and culture, because they are interwoven, they are created by the environments in which we live. And certainly this is a task, and this is a perspective, and this is an understanding that are held by indigenous people throughout the world, actually, because indigenous peoples are peoples of place. And so what I wanted to share with you this evening is really just a perspective and an understanding. Growing up here in New Mexico, growing up in Santa Clara Pueblo, and also really being a lifelong resident of New Mexico. Seeing the changes that have taken place, not only here in Albuquerque, in the middle of the state, but also, in northern New Mexico, where I'm from. So I want to really emphasize this idea, and incidentally, today is Arbor Day. So this is a celebration of trees, which are really the premier plant. And certainly here, the trees that we celebrate are the cottonwood, the juniper, the pinon, the willow, and certainly, these are the trees in the Douglas fir. Trees are sacred, and they form really a tapestry and a canopy, if you will, that in a sense encloses both the plants and animals that live below those trees. And so certainly here in New Mexico, the trees, and as you're seeing in the slides that are going before you, these are plants, and these are trees, and these are shrubs that are common in New Mexico. At least one time they were common. Certainly when I was growing up in my village in Santa Clara Pueblo, being from a farming family, I used to go out almost every day and explore the world around me. In those days, you could actually take a walk 4 or 5, 6 miles around your house and come back to your house without any fear. Today would be, pretty cautious in letting your children do something like that. But in my day, we were able to move around in the landscape, to discover it, to explore it. This is an opportunity that a lot of children don't have today anymore, and even children that are native to New Mexico. And one of the reasons why that has happened is because of the changes, not only in the environment, but also the changes in our society. And really what could be called a disconnection from the natural world that has been caused by a variety of different kinds of social forces that are at play today, which include the climate change that we're really beginning to address in so many different kinds of ways. So this is why environment is inclusive of the people, the culture, and the place. And certainly in this context, the biology of the place is so important to begin to understand and to begin to utilize in terms of how we begin to address the challenges of climate change that are before us. Many of the plants that you're seeing on the slideshow here are plants that were picked for food or for medicine by Puebloan peoples in this area. Many of them actually are endangered as we speak, because many of them, because of habitat loss, because of lack of water, because of drought, because of human beings picking these plants for profit, rather than understanding the ecology of those plants and those plant communities. So as a result, many of the plants in New Mexico that have been used for medicine, particularly herbal plants, are endangered. And there are just very few places now where you can go in New Mexico where you can actually see stands of certain kinds of plants like oshawa and others growing as they used to when I was growing up. So I really want to bring to mind this perspective of the importance of certainly the research that is being done here at the center, but also the importance of including communities, including elder people, including younger people, including the whole community in this process, in the sense of reconnecting to our landscape, reconnecting to the plants, reconnecting to the trees that give us life. For Native people, trees are sacred and they're symbolic. We utilize certainly, the trees that I just mentioned, the cottonwood, the Douglas fir, and all of the trees that are given in our stories, and also that we experience and that we encounter in our daily lives. For Pueblo people, trees are what would be called a symbol of life. They basically are trees of life. And this concept, this idea goes all the way into Mexico as well, where trees are venerated, particularly certain kinds of trees are venerated because they're a representation of the connection of sky and earth, and our interaction with those trees, in a sense, develop our sense for connection and for understanding that trees are our relatives, plants are our relatives. And so I just wanted to, because I'm getting the 3-minute sign here, I just want to give you those thoughts and perspectives. I had a presentation, but seeing the format for the evening, I think it's better to have conversation and to have some reflection on the kinds of connections that we all have individually. I imagine that one of the reasons why you're here is to, hear the student presentations, to contribute and to participate in this way of community. But I think it's very important to understand that as we move forward, many of the challenges that we face collectively are not challenges that individuals can really manage. It's only going to be handled through community and through community work. And so the more work you do as a community with regard to the challenges that face you in your communities, in your place, That's going to make the biggest difference. And certainly there's the place for data and the importance of data, but that's not all there is. And I want to emphasize that data is one of the baselines, okay? One of the baselines. The other baseline is community. The other baseline is an understanding of ethical relationship to those entities that give you life. And so for life's sake, as we say, Woetsiki is our term, and what that simply means, we do this for life's sake. So thank you, and be with life.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gregory. I'm going to invite up Kim Eichhorst to give us some closing remarks, and then we will be finished.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Hopefully we can stitch this back together and post it online with the presentations that were kind of jumped over so that we could go outside and get away from the fire alarm. I do want to say thank you guys not only for coming tonight, but for all of your roles in BEMP. And I would like to be so bold as to say that Cliff would be thrilled to see how we've grown and how well I think we've bounced back from COVID restrictions. And I deeply appreciate each of you, from student to stakeholder to partner, parents, funders. We are who we are because of the people in this room and the people who have supported us throughout the years. So thank you for coming. It'll all be online, and I have nothing else to say. I was given, 2 minutes, hey, you're gonna do the wrap up. You guys are awesome.
Cool. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Feel free to grab some food on the way out. Check out some stuff over here. But thank you.